Welcome to Seasoned Citizens Present. Our program today concerns cholesterol and our nutrition. I'm Lou Baier, Resource Coordinator for the Commission on Aging. And our guest today has brought much information to us concerning our diets. And this is in regards to cholesterol, and we do want to thank the Dairy Council for the information. Our guest is a registered dietitian and is program director for the Dairy Council. I'd like to have you meet Molly Pelzer.
Thank you, Lou. It's nice to be here.
Thank you for coming today, Molly. And Molly has brought with her a film which she plans to share with us this afternoon. And I'd like to have Molly give us a little background information on this film and tell us what we should be looking for today.
The film is titled Your Body, Your Diet, and Cholesterol. It presents a scientific review of heart disease, including information on risk factors, the role of diet, and the importance of regular checks of blood cholesterol and blood pressure. Should we see the film now?
Fine.
A public enemy is finally declining as America's #1 killer. Age-adjusted death rates for diseases of the heart declined by 23% between 1970 and 1981, the last reporting year. What is the reason for this change? Just as there is no one cause for diseases of the heart, medical authorities say that there is no single reason for the decline. They indicate it is the result of changes in the way we live, added to changes in medical understanding of the causes and treatment for diseases of the heart. Medical science now recognizes that 3 primary risk factors increase a person's chances of having a heart attack. The first risk factor, cigarette smoking, relates to lifestyle and as such is seen as avoidable. And many people are avoiding it. Smoking has dropped from a 1963 high of more than 4,300 cigarettes for every person in America to less than 3,500 in 1984. The second primary heart disease risk factor, hypertension, is being identified earlier through community screening and treatment programs. And the third primary risk factor, hypercholesterolemia, a very high amount of cholesterol in the blood, can cause arteries to become blocked and lead to heart disease. There are other secondary risk factors, some controllable, some not. They include behavior patterns, certain types of emotional stress, physical inactivity, diabetes, male sex, age, and obesity. It is on blood cholesterol that much of the debate has focused, especially with regard to how it may be affected by diet. Just what determines a person's blood cholesterol level? Most people with high blood cholesterol levels have a genetic predisposition to this condition. The rest of the population, some 80%, don't have to worry. Exercise also seems to influence blood cholesterol levels. Many Americans have zealously embraced exercise to improve their overall fitness. By keeping leaner and more fit, these people help reduce other secondary risk factors such as obesity and stress.
Heart attacks are caused by a disease process known as atherosclerosis. This tongue twister has to do with the deposition of fatty plaques in small and medium-sized arteries, like coronary arteries, or arteries to the brain, which can, in later life, cause severe disease.
Dr. Robert Olson is professor of medicine at the State University of New York at Stony Brook.
This disease begins at puberty in males. Children are not at risk for atherosclerosis, and somewhat later in females. Women are protected by their hormones, by estrogen, and by a distribution of their lipoproteins that makes them at lower risk. So young people at 20 or 30 years of age, as our Vietnam veterans showed, can have severe disease without having heart attacks. But later on, these fatty plaques may occlude or stop blood flow or promote clotting in such a way that big arteries or medium-sized arteries to vital organs are blocked. This causes pain, shock, and sometimes fatal changes in the rhythm of the heart.
At the Rockefeller University in New York, Scientists conducted research in cholesterol metabolism for more than 30 years. Dr. Donald McNamara participated in that research for a decade. Currently professor of nutrition and food science at the University of Arizona, McNamara confirms the finding that cholesterol is not only vital for life itself, but that most of it originates in the body.
The cholesterol that we find in our body actually comes from two sources. About 70% of it comes from our own production. And that's one of the things that I think is misunderstood about cholesterol in the body and in the bloodstream, is that we actually get most of it from the production that occurs in the liver and other body organs every single day. And about 30% comes from our diet. So that the majority of cholesterol that we find in the bloodstream is actually made in the body itself.
Proper functioning of the nerves is just one of the many essential body activities in which cholesterol plays a key role. As a fat-soluble steroid alcohol, cholesterol is a source for vitamin D synthesis in the skin when it is exposed to sunlight. And this substance is converted to bile acids that aid the body in absorbing and using fats. It is also a precursor to many hormones. Science has learned that cholesterol makes its journey in the blood attached to lipoproteins, which are complexes of fats and proteins. These vehicles are classified according to their densities: very low density, and high density. The densities increase as the amount of protein increases. The least dense of these complexes, very low density lipoproteins, or VLDL, are formed in the liver. They contain mostly fat, but little cholesterol. Low-density lipoprotein, or LDL, is formed when the VLDL breaks down. It is the main carrier of cholesterol to the cells and is sometimes called the bad cholesterol because it is associated with increased risk of heart disease. Of the three lipoproteins, the high-density type, or HDL, contains the least amount of fat. HDL transports cholesterol away from the cells to the liver, from where it may go back into the blood, be converted to bile acids, or be excreted in the bile. HDL is sometimes called the good cholesterol because it is associated with decreased risk of heart disease. It's widely held that cholesterol levels above 240 milligrams per 100 milliliters of blood result in increased risk of heart disease. The average cholesterol level in the U.S. is about 211 milligrams among U.S. males 20 to 74 years old. The recognized ways to reduce blood cholesterol levels are with diet, drugs, and perhaps exercise. Yet there is a widespread assumption that even healthy people can lower their blood cholesterol levels by eating fewer foods containing cholesterol and/or saturated fatty acids. But the evidence does not support this assumption.
It's probably not a good idea to treat the entire population because benefits have not been shown for certain groups. I'm thinking of children before puberty, I'm thinking of young women until menopause, and I'm thinking of the 60% of individuals who have cholesterol values below 210 milligrams per deciliter.
And in the same way, people look different, they respond different to dietary components. So some people are sensitive to fat, some people are sensitive to cholesterol. Indeed, our own studies have shown when we took people and fed them first a very low cholesterol diet and then a high cholesterol diet, the majority were able to keep their blood cholesterol level constant simply by the fact that when they ate more, their bodies made less. And this kind of balance has allowed most people to maintain a relatively constant plasma cholesterol level when their diets are changed. When we eat a cholesterol-containing food, that cholesterol actually enters the intestinal tract, but only about 50% is absorbed. And when it's absorbed, it then mixes with the cholesterol that's carried in the blood, that's being made in the body every day. And those two cholesterols are really indistinguishable, what we make and what we actually get from our diet. But for most people with an average American diet, they get very little cholesterol from their diet actually absorbed.
A food isn't bad just because it contains cholesterol. While the body produces slightly less than 3/4 of its own cholesterol, it gets the rest from the food we eat. About 20% of the cholesterol the body is exposed to comes from such meat group foods as brain, liver, and kidney, as well as eggs and shellfish. Another 5% comes from milk group foods. Combination foods coming from more than one food group contribute another 2%. So-called extra foods containing fats contribute about 2.5%. Persons who eliminate foods from the meat group and the milk group would lose significant amounts of important nutrients from their diets. For example, foods in the meat group contribute 52% of the protein, 40% of the iron, and 78% of the vitamin B12 available in the U.S. food supply. Foods in the milk group contribute 74% of the calcium, 37% of the riboflavin, 21% of the protein, 20% of the vitamin B12, 20% of the magnesium, and many other nutrients. Complicating the equation still further is the role of total fat in the diet. Saturated fatty acids, which may increase blood cholesterol levels in some people, are found in all naturally occurring fats, but they are higher in animal fats. Frequently, vegetable fats are made more saturated through a commercial process called hydrogenation, which is used in the manufacture of margarine. Coconut oil contains an abundance of saturated fatty acids. It's a common replacement for animal fats in imitation and substitute foods such as non-dairy coffee creamers. New scientific evidence is revealing that monounsaturated fatty acids found in all naturally occurring fats, including animal fats, may lower blood cholesterol instead of having no effect as once believed. Polyunsaturated fatty acids are found in all naturally occurring fats, but they're higher in some plants and fish. They are known to lower blood cholesterol levels in some people. Another dietary component that may lower blood cholesterol is fiber, which is found in fruits, vegetables, and grains. Virginia Beale, a public health nutritionist at the University of Massachusetts, raises a cautionary flag. She is one of many health professionals who are concerned that people may harm themselves by cutting out certain foods in an effort to reduce their blood cholesterol levels. She favors moderation and eating a variety of foods from the basic 4 food groups as the best approach to a healthy diet.
If an individual has to cut fat and cholesterol in the diet, the easiest ways to do it are to cut the unnecessary things. The fats which are present in salad dressings, gravy, if the fat needs to be restricted even further, then we can go to trimming the fat, the visible fat off meats. We can go from whole milk to skim milk or to 2% milk, either of which is going to be lower in fat. Therefore,
Virginia Beale observes that eliminating large numbers of nutritious foods can lead to disease. While some nutrient deficiency diseases are a thing of the past, several are not. Such diseases include anemia, which results from too little iron in the diet, and osteoporosis, the brittle bone disease resulting from marked bone loss, is caused in part by long-term dietary calcium shortages. Inadequate calcium intake may even contribute to high blood pressure in some people. One institution where the role of calcium in blood pressure regulation is being studied is New York Hospital Cornell Medical Center, where Dr. Lawrence Resnick is an assistant professor of medicine.
We're finding that calcium can lower blood pressure in certain individuals who have high blood pressure, and indeed we believe we can target at this stage which individuals are those who would benefit by calcium treatment. The people who have lower levels of free or ionized calcium in the blood to begin with, who are also, by the way, the people who have lower levels of a well-known blood pressure hormone called renin. These group of individuals respond best to extra amounts of calcium in the diet.
To assure that you get the calcium and other nutrients you need, you should make dietary changes very carefully. Those who want to lower blood cholesterol, or have been advised by their physician to do so, can reduce their fat and cholesterol intake sensibly without adversely affecting the nutritional integrity of their diet. But too much food in the diet can lead to obesity. More than 34 million Americans are overweight. Since obesity increases the risk of developing serious disease, Virginia Beale concludes that the problem is not with the dinner, but the diner.
We have too much food and we do not exercise enough, so that the combination of the two results in an increase in body weight. And increased body weight, particularly extreme degrees of obesity, are related to a number of different diseases, including heart disease, hypertension, diabetes particularly.
If these maladies can strike throughout life, why not intervene early, perhaps as early as 6 months? In 1983, the American Academy of Pediatrics issued a statement that said in part, "The safety of diets designed to decrease consumption of fat and cholesterol and limit sodium intake has not been established in growing children and pregnant women. Diets that avoid extremes are safe for children."
I would say yes.
Dr. Robert Olson also has expressed concerns about the long-term effects of low-fat and low-cholesterol diets for very young people.
Small percent. In general, parents should not be concerned about the risk of their healthy children to develop heart attack or to be at particular risk for heart attack later in life, because atherosclerosis is not a disease of children. The lesions of atherosclerosis, that is complicated atherosclerosis, is not a disease of children. There are what we call fatty plaques that occur in children all over the world, independent of their heredity, independent of their diets, independent of their environment, which causes no disease. Now, these fatty streaks that children get disappear in puberty as the plaques, the real serious lesions, begin to appear. So this emphasis on recommending change in diet for children, I think, is not based on sound scientific evidence.
The debate about cholesterol began in the 1950s and has continued since then. Studies have examined the subject from seemingly every perspective.
The first set of studies to gain insight into the nature of heart disease are so-called forward-looking epidemiologic studies, in which there is no intervention, but a large population such as that was studied at Framingham, Massachusetts, are examined to see what factors correlated with that development of disease. Now, a second set of trials is in progress, and many have been completed, in which a given risk factor is modified, like blood pressure or cholesterol in the blood, to see whether that modifies the outcome of the disease process. Some of these have been positive, some of these have been negative. In general, a study in Norway, which is called the Laren study, a study in the United States called Mr. Fit, were designed to segregate high-risk individuals and treat their smoking, their blood pressure, and their cholesterol levels. The study in Norway showed there was some reduction in coronary events and coronary deaths, but no change in mortality. The study in the United States showed there was, in fact, no change in coronary deaths or mortality. So the diet used in that study involved a reduction in fat, increase in polyunsaturated fat, reduction in serum cholesterol, and it was not effective over a 7-year period.
In January 1984, the U.S. government announced the results of a long-term trial that involved more than 3,800 men for at least 7 years. It was the Lipid Research Clinic Coronary Primary Prevention Trial.
But in that study, which has been called the LRCCP Trial, it was actually shown that for men who had very high cholesterols, the top 5% of the population, that when their cholesterol levels were reduced with a drug, cholestyramine, their incidence of heart attacks went down. I think the unfortunate thing has been that that trial has been misinterpreted as suggesting then that by reducing someone's cholesterol with diet, you can get the same effect. There are two questions, really. One, the fact that diet and a drug like cholestyramine function by different ways, and therefore are going to lower cholesterol, but by different mechanisms, and may not have the same benefit. And two, to say that for every man, woman, and child to change your diet, when you've really only investigated the very high-risk group, I think is a misinterpretation of that study.
Finally, what can you do to limit your risk of developing heart disease? First, as part of a national cholesterol education program, you should know your blood cholesterol level by having your physician check it regularly. Also, have the doctor check your blood pressure on a regular basis. If you smoke, stop. Exercise regularly. If you're overweight, have your doctor help you develop a supervised program to lose weight by permanently changing your eating habits.
I think it's much more important that for the average American to have a balanced diet, good overall nutrition, intake from the 4 food groups, and not necessarily to exclude certain foods because of the cholesterol those foods might contain.
Well, in the average American diet, 70 to 90% of the calcium in the diet's in the form of dairy products. and so that's the biggest group. There are other sources of dietary calcium, for instance, canned salmon or sardines, for instance, and you have to make sure that you eat the bones that come in the can as well. Or collard greens is a third dietary source of calcium.
There isn't any clear-cut picture of what an ideal diet should be because around the world there's a wide variety of different foods that people eat. We need to concentrate primarily on meeting nutrient requirements. There are some 40 or more nutrients which are required to keep the body healthy. And these are widely distributed in a wide variety of foods, which means that if we eat a wide variety of foods, we're more likely to meet nutritional requirements.
To get that variety, many nutritionists recommend balancing food choices from the 4 food groups: milk, meats, fruits and vegetables, and grains. It's a balancing act that will help you and your heart stay healthy throughout life.
Molly, there was much interesting information in that film. I'm wondering if you could summarize for us some of the most important points that we should remember from today's film.
I thought the film did a very good job reviewing the risk factors associated with heart disease. An individual who is concerned about their own personal risk for heart disease may want to do some of the following. They should have their blood cholesterol level checked. They should have their blood pressure checked regularly. They may wish to stop smoking if they do smoke. They should exercise regularly, and they should try to maintain or attain an ideal body weight. And they can do this best by working with their physician or their dietitian to develop lifelong eating habits that promote good health. For those people whose blood cholesterol levels are below 240 milligrams, they will probably not be able to lower their blood cholesterol levels through diet. If they eat less cholesterol, their bodies will just make more. These individuals should use the basic 4 food group approach to a balanced diet, eating foods from each of the 4 basic food groups in moderation with variety to get the 40 or so nutrients they need for good health. Individuals with blood cholesterol levels above 240 milligrams are at a higher risk for heart disease. Studies have shown that if their blood cholesterol levels are reduced, their risk for heart disease goes down. However, these research studies are based on studies which use drugs to lower the blood cholesterol level. Studies are still being done to see if diet and exercise patterns can reduce blood cholesterol levels and reduce the risk for heart disease. The best dietary advice for individuals whose blood cholesterol levels are over 240 milligrams is to work with a dietitian to help them attain a desirable weight level. This is usually done by increasing exercise and by limiting the total number of calories in their diet, particularly calories from fat. The dietitian will help you reduce fat in your diet by focusing on 2 major areas. The first is the group of others foods, or foods that provide mostly calories and very few nutrients. Foods in this group would include butter, margarine, gravy, oil, and salad dressing. The second area the dietitian would help you focus on would be to lower fat from the 4 basic food groups. He or she might suggest choosing low-fat dairy foods, choosing lean meats, trimming the fat from meat and removing the skin from poultry, avoiding frying and using baking, broiling, or roasting instead, and also to limit the amount of sauces put on your vegetable dishes. The key for this group is still to eat a balanced diet based on the 4 basic food groups with variety and moderation. There is no need to avoid any particular food or food group in an effort to reduce your blood cholesterol levels. And for all individuals, again, who are at risk for heart disease, remember to check with your physician. That diet is one of the risk factors for heart disease. The other risk factors include your family history, being born male, diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, and smoking. But diet is a very popular aspect for heart disease, and we should all approach it with the same good common sense of the 4 basic food groups: variety and moderation.
Well, we certainly hope everyone takes to heart the message that you have brought to us today, and we want to thank Molly for sharing all of this good information, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Lou. It was my pleasure.
We want to also thank the Dairy Council for allowing us to use this information for our program, and we hope that the senior citizens and your families that are watching today do take some of this advice that we have seen. We want to thank all of you for watching our program today, and we would like to have you continue watching our programs on Channel 26. We appreciate the opportunity that Heritage Cablevision gives to us in providing these programs for you. We are scheduled 3 days a week, on Saturdays at 10 o'clock and on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 o'clock. And in addition, you might see us at other times. So please keep in touch with us. Call Heritage if you would like to have a special program shown sometimes. I'm sure they would be happy to hear from you. And thank you for watching today.
Thank you.